Welcome to the past, where you'll get information related to sports, video games, technology, music, and our all-time favorite ass of the week. What is good? What's going on, y'all? This is the Past Podcast. Episode 203 is here. I'm your host, BT. Hope everyone's doing well today. I'm going to go ahead and get the elephant out of the room early because I know there was a little bit of a hiccup. The image that I have will be the same. Knowing me, I probably will delete or make some modifications as needed. But the brief podcast that I did yesterday seemed as though it was a little challenging and a bit tedious in wanting to upload, but as I've learned with life and as you learn along the way, you can't let what does or doesn't happen control what you're trying to get done. So as the saying goes, the show must go on. So I will bring that story to light as to the image that's shared. There are a lot of topics to get into. There are a lot of sports stories that have happened, things coming up. So we're not gonna really waste any time and get right into it. As we start each show each week, for the weekly show, we do our angel number. And I think we need an angel number this week, especially with a lot of the news that we'll be sharing and talking about today. So the angel number this week or today is 203. Angel number 203 shows that you have impressed your angels with your deep belief in them and the connection you seek with them daily. Your meditations and prayers to the higher powers have found favor in the eyes of your angels. They wish to encourage you to continue and keep the spirit. For you to understand your destiny number, you need to know what each individual number in angelic number 203 holds meaning and has some influence in your life. Number 2 stands for finding balance, value of friendships, and your duty to serve your fellow mankind. Traits associated with this number include insight and intuition, responsibility and service, trust, and faith. You have to be willing to inculcate these qualities within you as to allow enough room for growth in your life. Balance your life and ensure there is balance in all the spheres. The number 0 symbolizes the aspect of eternity and immortality. It is infinite. It has infinity undertones that signify never-ending energies in your life. When you see this number in a series, it shows the wholeness of a phenomenon. In this case, it seeks to show the wholeness of your journey. Angel number 3 shows that you need to be strong and decisive in order to identify what is good for your journey and what is not. At the same time, you need to be humble enough to listen to your intuition as it provides the best guidance. Trust your angels to speak to you every so often and to provide you with the guidance you need for your success. Angel number 203 meaning asks you to keep your soul free from all negativity and cultivate positive thoughts in every situation. So this ties more into what the podcast and what my flow has been about for a while, which is just being positive and just kind of keeping the right attitude through everything that goes on around you. Like, you know, I talked about this as a guest host on the show this weekend with Soul Gab with Ash and Jazz, and I'll put that in the show notes. But we really went into like a full deep dive of how, yes, you want to be positive, and it's true to be human in knowing that every day is not going to be a great day. But as life teaches you, and by nature you're reminded, you got to push through and move forward. So that's mainly what today's breakdown is about. If y'all hear my action going on over here, don't hold it against me. Just a lot been moving, but it is what it is. But today we can go ahead and break down the finals matchups, or the matchups as far as for the big three. I'm sitting here like having a moment. I was like ready to say big baller, right? I'm like, wait, we're not talking about them. But the Big Three did have the championship game. It was held in Brooklyn. Power did beat Three's Company, which was a huge win for them. I kind of went in looking for them to be the favorite. Andre Emmett definitely did his part in, making it a good match. They were kind of, running the things early on, but it was more so just Big Three doing their part. I mean, not Big Three, but Power doing their part. So yeah, that was the final score. The final score for that game was 51-43. As I mentioned in a podcast a couple of episodes back, I believe it was the last episode actually, that it was being donned as the Julius Erving Trophy. I don't know why I like to mess with stuff at the wrong time. All right, that's going to have to do. But yeah, it was 13,504 who attended or watched the game at the Barclays Center. Nancy Lieberman is given the credit as being the first female to coach a men's sports team, and also winning this championship. And it was her rookie season in the Big Three, so that's even more props to her. I don't know if any of you who do or don't remember really watching basketball back in the day. She was known as Lady Magic. Her time of basketball, she was illegal. And I know I say illegal in that term, but she had a very finesse game to how she played basketball. Like, she was ahead of the craft. And she was good at what she did. So, big props to Power for winning. Corey Maggette did win MVP, and it's even bigger for him because he did come off of having a torn Achilles last year when they played. So that's big. That's big news for him. I believe it was him, Glenn Davis, Cuttino Mobley, Chris Anderson, or as everybody knows him as Birdman. I'm trying to think who else is on the team. Yeah, that's everybody I can think of right offhand. But yeah, that was mainly kind of an A to Z of that game. We'll segue, and I've been holding this story, but I really want to. I think this story, my other story is going to take up a lot of time too. Don't get me wrong, but this story, I think I really wanted to consume your ear and consume your mind for a minute, because this could possibly show you the state of college football. So, Ohio State did come down with its sentence for Urban Meyer as far as with the situation involving his assistant coach who was involved in a sexual incident. They did decide to go ahead and suspend him the first 3 games after the investigation. Ohio State University announced Wednesday night that football head coach Urban Meyer will be suspended for the first 3 games of the upcoming season without pay, following an investigation into his handling of domestic abuse allegations against the former assistant coach. The university also announced that athletic director Gene Smith would be suspended without pay between August the 31st and September 16th. I want to apologize to Buckeye Nation. Meyer said at a news conference after this suspension was announced, "I follow my heart, not my head." The decision was announced exactly 3 weeks after Myers was placed on paid administrative leave, while Ohio State probed what he knew about the claims against former wide receivers coach Zach Smith. Meyer was put on leave hours after Smith's ex-wife Courtney went public with claims that she had told Meyer's wife that Zach Smith had shoved her against the wall and put his hands around her neck in 2015. The couple divorced in 2016, and Zach Smith was fired on July 23rd of this year after an Ohio court granted Courtney Smith a domestic violence protective order. Days later, Meyer told reporters at the Big Ten's preseason media days in Chicago that he was never told about any incident involving Smith and his wife in 2005. On Wednesday, Meyer admitted that his media day remarks were not as complete and as accurate as I should have been, but denied he intentionally deceived anyone. He added that he likely kept Zach Smith on staff out of loyalty to former Buckeye coach Earl Bruce, Smith's grandfather, and a man Meyer described as a mentor and like a father to him. And they go into more information and just kind of talk about what occurred. So I have a few ways of this being seen. If this were, I'm trying to think of a school that could be a top mate. If this was BYU, I guarantee you it would not have been handled the same. And I know that's but that's still somewhat of a major school, which it is. It's not a mid. Some people would look at it in the college terms as a mid-major, but a school I'll reel it back to this story, but I really don't want to because, it's already been done and taken care of. But Joe Paterno in Penn State, that story got more wave and way more attention than it got the attention. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It got the attention that it deserved. It got there was huge backlash behind it. There was a lot involved. Let's just put it out there and call it what it is. This situation, I think, and it's an indifferent feel towards it. So I'm going to come at it from both sides. From the administrative standpoint, it's being looked at as what Urban Meyer's accountability factor is for it. So that's where the three game suspension comes into play. From the sports perspective overall, he knew, and it was almost like it was wiped under the rug, and then it doesn't benefit because you can almost say that you can say without saying that he lied during media day, and they kind of whisked by okay, we don't see it. It's all good. Let's just keep it pushing. So I feel like those factors are relevant to the way this was handled. Again, to reiterate and to state the obvious, it's not something that I'm here to sit and justify or make cool or have it sound like it's acceptable, because it's not. I really and truly hope that Ohio State doesn't, even with him being out, they're likely, him not coaching 3 games is not a big deal. If they put him out for the rest of the season, that would have been one thing, let alone if he got a massive ban. Because if you look at it, to spin it on the basketball side, Louisville, they gave the hammer to Rick Pitino in his situation. Grant, like I said, it's a different view of it because it was money involved and it's players, getting lap dances or sex, a lot of things that were involved. And like I said, I'm giving kind of a paraphrase of what occurred, but long story short, it was Ohio State being Ohio State and trying to keep their reputation in some instance reputable. But it doesn't look good for the eye of college football. And I know one of my friends in the sports group, he was not very pleased with it. And I think for him, it was kind of tying back to that incident involving Penn State and how that all occurred. And it was almost like they gave Penn State the death, I won't say the death penalty, but it was kind of like a sentencing where you are going to lose scholarships. This is going to be affected. They really didn't do anywhere near close to that with this situation. So it's tough to measure every single situation that occurs in sports, but in this case, I guess you can look at it as saying that they tried to do the best they could with what they felt was applicable in this instance. Going to the opposite end of football with pro football, and before I continue, I do want to share preseason. I believe we have about, this is the last week of preseason coming up. This Saturday on the 1st is the official kickoff of college football. The story that's kind of swirled a little bit is that Alabama does not know who they're going to have as their starting coach. To be media and politically correct, Nick Saban knows who he wants to start. He's just not going to make the announcement. They may know it within the team, but it's not going to be a public-based story. It's a tough comparison, but it's a way of looking at it. Nick Saban kind of handles his team the way Bill Belichick handles the Patriots. So just think of it as such. Like I said, sticking with football, but going into pro football. Jimmy Smith, who is the cornerback for the Baltimore Ravens, has been suspended after the NFL did find a pattern of improper conduct. My bad, let me get kind of prepared. The NFL announced Tuesday that Ravens cornerback Jimmy Smith will be suspended for the first 4 games of the season for violating the league's personal conduct policy. The Ravens released a statement saying the NFL found evidence of threatening and emotionally abusive behaviors. I'm sitting there like I can't read. Abusive behaviors by Jimmy towards his former girlfriend that showed a pattern of improper conduct. Our players' behavior was inappropriate and wrong. The team added that it consulted with relationship and domestic violence experts for their perspectives, and also had women and men in the organization who are executives not directly involved with football operations review the matter. The Ravens also said they spoke with Smith about his past behavior and intention to change, and that he acknowledged his behaviors were wrong and accepts full responsibility for them. He has completed a clinical evaluation and has agreed to undertake any follow-up care or treatment that may be recommended, Baltimore's statement read. Through our conversations with Jimmy, we believe he is taking the proper steps to improve and that he can change. Jimmy has assured us that he is fully dedicated to making this change. He also understands the consequences if he does not. The statement also mentioned Smith was going through a custody battle with his former girlfriend, but that has been resolved. Smith is eligible to participate in the remainder of the preseason, and the suspension will not take effect until September 1st. He'll be allowed to return to the team on October 1st. In the first 4 weeks of the season, Baltimore faces the Bills, Bengals, Broncos, and Steelers. Smith, who was picked by the Ravens in 2011, has started all 63 games, and he has played since all 63 games he's played since 2013. A lot of things to look at with this. It's tough because as a sport, you're put in a position to, as they call it, make the right decision. And this is no exception to doing so. I'm glad, this is kind of that step of the NFL is trying to get it right. The challenge of it becomes, because it's domestic related, it now turns into trying to find a universal or uniform way of not being almost equivalent to saying being fair to one but being unfair to another. Going back to the running back who was previously with the Ravens, I can't think of his name offhand. His incident, it's almost tough because for him, even with him being suspended and then coming back, it played a huge role in his career only because after that point, no team really wanted him. And it's not to say that he was damaged goods. I'm sitting here, I forgot that quick. Ray Rice. I think I didn't want to say Ray Rice because I'm sitting there like, my mind was saying Ray Rice, but my mental had me going Ray Lewis, and I'm like, okay, those are two separate players. So yeah, he will be serving that suspension, and it starts week 1, so he'll be out the first 4 games, and as I mentioned, the teams, those will be the games that he will miss for the season, or at least starting off. This story, I don't know if I'm making this as if it's a shocker, but if you kind of look at it, I feel like ESPN was trying to find every way to get her out the door. excuse me, Jemele Hill, who is a very outspoken news reporter or sports analyst, called Trump a white supremacist and a bigot, was told or has been requested to leave ESPN. They are planning to buy her out for $2.5 million. Let me see, because I want to get the exact. I think the date will be on September the 1st. So she'll be, from what I'm gathering, she'll probably work that Friday, and then Saturday they'll be letting her go. Outspoken sports journalist Jemele Hill is breaking up with sports network ESPN after a series of incidents in which she bumped heads with network brass about issues of racism. A person familiar with the situation told Variety that Hill will leave the network at the beginning of September. Hill was a commentator for SportsCenter and most recently a columnist at ESPN's The Undefeated. ESPN declined to put Variety in touch with executives for comment, and Hill referred a query to her manager, Evan Dick, who would not immediately be reached by the news organization. The alleged departure was reported via Twitter by James Andrew Miller, podcaster and journalist. Miller tweeted Saturday that the parting was amicable and that it's been a long time coming. Miller also tweeted that the separation is coming after a meeting that Hill requested with ESPN president James Pitaro. Variety reported that the purpose of the meeting was to discuss Hill's departure plan. Brian Steinberg, senior TV editor with the Variety, said via Twitter that he confirmed the departure. Jemele Hill expected to part ways with ESPN. Others are writing reports based on Jim Miller, as they should, but I contacted others and confirmed what he's already posted. So it's this kind of ties into that being the now story. And I'm going to talk about this before I continue with this story. And then I'm going to give my overall thoughts with Jemele. This is just podcast and talk, and this is just something that I have observed lately. Everyone wants to break the story. Everyone wants to be the first to say, I shared it. Everyone wants to be the first to say, I told y'all it was coming. When in reality, it's tough to break a story without the story properly being broken. And I feel like I talk about this on this show every couple of episodes, but I always like to bring it to attention because some people, you might have just came in episode 148. You might have came in back on episode 1. You might be listening for the first time. But I just share that and I just bring that to light because it's a very important piece of information to look at when it comes to stories and people getting news out there. So I want to share that, and I'll continue the story and then we'll go further. The Daily Mail notes that on September 11, 2017, Hill came under fire for calling Trump a white supremacist and unqualified and unfit to be president, as well as a bigot. She also defended athletes' right to take a knee in protest of police misconduct. Her remarks about Trump prompted the White House to call for her firing and motivated ESPN to suspend her for 2 weeks. In the spring, the National Association of Black Journalists named Hill as 2018 NABJ Journalist of the Year, commending her for using her platform to address national, social, and cultural issues in addition to sports. NABJ President Sarah Glover called Hill a gem who exhibits strength, grace, and doggedness. NABJ appreciates the courage and steadfastness Jemele has demonstrated as a journalist and commentator speaking truth to power, Glover said earlier this year. Pitaro has said that ESPN is to report only on sports and stay out of the fray of politics, Variety reported. He has told reporters he would refer that ESPN reporters avoid expressing individual political beliefs to the public. So, first things first, because that in that last paragraph, the article will be in the show notes as I always share. That last paragraph is important. This kind of almost becomes the deja vu of the NFL. ESPN, do not take this the wrong way. Don't come for my podcast. I'm just speaking what I'm observing. If I'm wrong, hey, it is what it is. it's okay for you to address and talk about sports and talk about news and talk about what's going on in the random non-sports related world, because there are a lot of sports stories that ESPN posts that have nothing to do with sports. And in case you missed it, or if you were sleeping, something of that sort. There's stories that come on that are not any bit of sports. Rolling a piece of cheese down a hill, that's not sports. I'm just gonna tell it like it is. To add to that, once you break out of that scope, you're becoming bigger than ESPN. Now, before y'all skew those words, because I know how it is, I'm not saying Jemele Hill is bigger than ESPN. That's far from where I'm going with this. But I'm bringing to light that Jemele makes those uncomforting discussions that a lot of analysts aren't going to talk about. If you really look at sports, and if you look at the state of sports as a whole, it's bad to look at it as such, but it's a reality. You have more white or Caucasian individuals who are with these sports stations such as ESPN, Fox, CNN, MSNBC. There are a couple of blacks, African American men and women who do give their thoughts, not just from a sports perspective, not just from a news perspective, but that balance of imbalance occurs when African Americans come into the light or come into the realm. We automatically come in and we're going to bring up topics that either no one wants to address or no one wants to look at, or no one is really open to having dialogue about sometimes. If you go back on Undisputed, when Shannon Sharp and Skip did their show together, the first couple of weeks, it was near the time when Kaepernick was going through everything with whether he would be playing football or not, trying to figure out what the next steps were. And Skip, being Skip because he really didn't know, had to kind of get Sharp in seeing it as, well, what do we do? Because the toughest thing for human beings is that either we can or we cannot relate to what someone is or is not experiencing. Because if it's something that we personally aren't experiencing or have not experienced ourselves, we don't know what it's like. Like, not everyone, and I'm saying this just general talking, and I'll reel it back to Jemele in a second. Not everyone knows or understands the experience of being a black man or a black woman going somewhere and concerns generating from what is or isn't said. It could be something as small as being at a job and you are asked a question or made a statement, and if a discussion comes back and you're talking to that person, if you are talking a little louder than normal, it can be interpreted as you're raising your voice and you're angry. And it's like, no, I was just talking, and I just speak very detailed. Like when I talk, as any of you all know, we're doing the podcast, my voice travels, my voice carries. A lot of times that's why I have to remember to not be this close to the microphone. So that's why I give space, because it's the balance of the imbalance. But anyway, I say all of that. That's all a ramble and has nothing to do with this article. So with this article itself, Jemele has always generated that discomfort zone. If you go back and look at it, as soon as they made the decision of not having her be physically seen with ESPN, it's okay, we know you're a good editor, we know you're a great columnist, so let's let your columnist work come in and do his thing, which they did, and everything was great. The challenge became, now we need to chew and dive into the other facet. Like, we're just gonna have you right, because you can say things, but you have to say it within the ESPN protocol. once, I really, as any of you all know, my podcast, I have no limits, so I don't care. But I personally feel as tough as a point that we're at, it needs to be seen and it needs to be addressed, because no one's going to come out and say it, but I can, because I don't care. Trump has caused a lot of networks and companies and businesses to kind of have the whole, if you're not with me, then y'all need to do whatever you can do to stay with me. And we've seen that with the NFL. We're seeing it with ESPN. We're going to see it with other companies, but it's so sad. I'm glad it hasn't happened, but I feel like it's going to eventually happen with Twitter. Because if it's something that he feels as though he can try to regulate, he's going to do so. There's nothing gained from doing it, because at the end of the day, people are going to say what they say and they're going to express how they feel. There's no controlling or no changing that regardless. And I think as true fans of the sport or of the game, we have to realize that. So I'm going to tell you now, I know 9 times out of 10, Jamel's going to get, when she gets let go, not even a week after she's released, she's going to a new network. She may go to Fox. She might go to CNN. I don't know. I just feel like it's, and a lot of times, if you really look at sports, this is something that occurs as well with sports analysts or with commentators. They'll be part of a channel. They may be there. They may get let go. They'll go to another company. The company who let them go sees ratings fall or drop or dip or things change. And then eventually they make a decision and say, you know what? We need to bring this person back. It's business. It's all business. If you really look at it, it's a business. And I just, I wish her success. I want her, I feel like this is not, as the saying goes, this isn't the last we've seen of Jamel, if you really and truly know sports. So just keep an eye out for her and wherever her career takes her. But I know, like I said, I know ESPN is doing what it can for it to save face, but it's not really the best face saving mechanism, at least from my perspective. So that's all we have right now, but that's what we have this week for sports. I did not add this story, but it did break yesterday. Odell Beckham Jr. is the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Get your money, bro. 5-year, $95 million, I believe, 65 guaranteed. So he's, getting that paper, and ain't nothing wrong with that. They did break a story broke of one of the top Jaguars wide receivers being out for the year. I believe it was torn Achilles. I don't have the exact injury in front of me, but he's out for the rest of the year. Adam Jones is going to be with the Broncos, so that's a big story. And now the question becomes, since the wideout is out for Jacksonville, does that mean that Dez Bryant could possibly go to Jacksonville? I doubt it, but that's another story. That's a whole other discussion in itself. So now we'll get into our stuff. The first story, I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to kind of tell you, Gamescom did happen, or Gamescom, happened this weekend in Manchester, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, in Germany. I don't know if I want to say Manchester, but it was in Germany. And there were a lot of things that were addressed, a lot of things that were brought to attention. The article is there. If you want to read up on them, you can definitely check that out at your own leisure. Xbox is looking to, I almost want to call this a phone plan. They want to give you a package deal for their service. I'm very on the fence about how to approach this one, or how to look at it. So what they're doing is they're going to be doing a monthly subscription, or monthly subscription service called Xbox All Access. It would bundle the Xbox console, Xbox Live, and Game Pass into a monthly charge with a 2-year contract. So yes, it would be like a phone plan. Customers would pay anywhere from $22 to $35 a month, depending on which console they wanted, to get an Xbox One or an Xbox X, along with Xbox Live online service and Xbox Game Pass gaming subscription. If you were to add it up and put it together, the total cost would be more than paying for the console and Live up front, and then monthly for Game Pass. But that's not unusual for a contract subscription. So what they're basically saying is, if you look at it with cell phones, it's the same way. If you were to do a month-to-month plan with a company, you're going to pay a pretty decent amount, because the difference is you bought the phone, you just need service. With it being what companies do now is it's called, as many people know, you lease a phone. So it's like, okay, if I want the new iPhone is coming out, I would just lease that phone and pay monthly on it. And from there, I'm under a contract with Sprint or with T-Mobile, but I haven't, I'm paying more money for what is being provided because of what's included. The site believes official news of the service could arrive in coming weeks. Rumored news comes as Microsoft continues to expand the push of Game Pass service, which gives subscribers a unfettered amount of access to the games on its service until the subscription runs out. Microsoft announced that it was launching the beta for the Game Pass app that allows users to search through the Game Pass library and start downloads on their Xbox. The company also announced that the Master Chief Collection was coming to the service, and it was kicking off a sale for Game Pass, which gave users the service for 2 months for $2. During E3, Microsoft announced that it was expanding the titles to come to Game Pass on launch day. Phil Spencer stated that eventually bringing the service to Windows would be a natural evolution. He also said that the success of the service has been awesome. I'm indifferent about this, and I'm going to give my indifferent opinion as to why I'm indifferent. I know what they're trying to do. I just don't think this is me personally. I personally don't believe that Microsoft is getting what they need executed properly. Because if you look at it, and this is just my immediate hot take, and this goes back to, I wouldn't even say the original Xbox. So the original Xbox, it was the same, but 360 was when this started to kind of evolve. You buy Xbox 360. The average person that bought a 360 could get online and play games, right? Cool. We got you playing games. We've achieved our goal because now you're using our system. But if you want to play against other people and you're not in the traditional, hey, let's come over to the house and play Xbox, and you want to play against people online, then you need our Xbox Live service. Xbox Live service is an interesting monster, and I'm going to explain why. You either have the option of paying for 1 month passes for $10, 3 month passes for, I believe, $24, $25. So mind you, you're getting about $5 off for that difference. And you can do a 1 year pass for $60. Now they've, in Xbox's defense, before I sound like I'm bad mouthing it, they've kept this format for at least 10 years. They have not at any point that I can recall bumped the prices for any of these services, which I'm okay with. So you're adding that feature in with getting a console. The console side of it is beneficial if you don't have an Xbox to begin with. But if you already got the Xbox, there's no need in you getting this plan or this package. But we're also going to give you Xbox Game Pass, which from my personal immediate perspective, it's still in limbo as to where that's going or how that's helpful to have. Because what I've seen and what I've noticed with gaming a lot of times is GTA's been out for 5 years. GTA 5 still sells for $60 in digital copy. The NBA 2K, we're at 2K18. I believe 2K13 or 2K14 came out. I think it was 2K14 came out when the Xbox One came out. If you were to go online and look for that game, I can guarantee you it's not under $30. Even with it having the years of evolving and there have been newer versions of the game out, etc., etc. It's a tough place to be in because as gamers and as the consumer market, it's kind of a revolution or a deja vu of streaming with music. And here's why I say that. At one point, people had MP3s. Everybody had an MP3 player or an MP3, a way of managing their MP3 files to listen to what songs they wanted to listen to in that moment or that mood. Now we're at a streaming point. With gaming and with consoles, you have people who still are going to get their physical discs to play physical games, whereas you have those because of streaming and just because it's common knowledge that are going to buy whatever game when the midnight release happens. They just go ahead and download a digital copy to their system. This then removes that interaction with people because, and this is music. I mean, if you listen to music, you ain't really interacting anyway. But that's another story. If you're getting this, like when Madden 19 came out, many stores had a midnight release. Many stores even went as far as likely having a Madden tournament because it's that one chance or that one opportunity of people coming together and actually playing the game in person instead of it being an online based process and people dealing with lag. So I'm giving all of that and I'm just painting that timeline and giving you that picture just to give you the observation of this is what we're getting ready to get to and where the digital piece comes into play. Because stores such as GameStop, Best Buy, Walmart, Target, there's a strong chance you're not going to see physical games for your PlayStations and your Xbox. Be prepared. It's a matter, this is 2018, I'd say in the next 5 years, I see it coming. And a lot of companies you're going to see that occur strictly because it's beneficial for the company, like the overhead, the cost. Because if I'm not making physical copies, all it is digital based. And if they want to buy it, they can buy it that way. And if they don't want to buy it, they can just do a negotiating deal and figure out what they want to do. So that's how I'm looking at that whole Xbox Live Game Pass bit or whatever. Because there aren't many people. And then now most games you have to play online. Like there's not really an option of, oh, if I want to play online, if I want to play online, I have an alternative. Like, oh, maybe I can just go, if I want to play offline, I'll just get the game, put whatever I need, and that's it. Most games are forcefully online based. Perfect example, and I'll move forward. World War II, story mode. Campaign, they want you to go through the story, understand World War II, etc., etc. Black Ops 4 is coming later on this year. There's no story mode. There's no benefit of having a story mode. For some people, it's beneficial because they want to know what's gotten us to this point. That's great. That's cool. Got you. But for the consumer who's really trying to get online, that knows what Call of Duty is and what to expect, they want to get online and, bust some heads open. That's it. So we'll see. Like I said, how that start when it first starts up. It's always that let's let it work itself out for the first couple weeks and see if it sticks or not, and kind of go from there. So I'm sharing this because this has kind of like been my inspiration, if you can to say without saying it. But Joe Budden was able to get a big deal, or he was able to make a deal with Spotify. So I'm going to give my unique circumstance, because I noticed this. Because what I did, as I've shared before, is I was on Apple Music, love Apple Music. And when it came to listening to music versus listening to podcasts, if I want to listen to music, you got the music app. If you want to listen to podcasts, you got to have a podcast app. Along comes Spotify. So I'm like, okay, Spotify is, and this is pretty recent, Spotify was getting into the podcast scene, because before we're sharing the podcast with you all, you would only be able to listen to podcasts if you had the podcast app, Stitcher, TuneIn, all your major apps that were out there, but Spotify wasn't on board. Well, that recently changed, and a lot of businesses had their podcasts on Spotify. But I was noticing for a while, I was like, why is Joe's podcast not on here? And I had been using the program. I think now I've been on Spotify about a month, if not longer. So to hit that point, and now it's kind of coming full circle, this kind of goes into why the Spotify, why it wasn't on, why they weren't on Spotify as of yet. So fans of the Joe Budden podcast have long heard the crew of Joe, Rory, and Maul and Parks playfully talk about adjusting their content when they get the bag. Don't expect the crew to sell out and change who they are. However, they have landed a exclusive partnership with Spotify. The show, formerly known as I'll Name This Podcast Later, will move exclusively to the streaming service beginning on September 12th, and will produce an extra podcast every week, which will now drop on Wednesdays and Saturdays. The Joe Budden podcast has become the most coveted weekly podcast listened in hip hop, and continues to rise in support among listeners due to the lively conversation from the group. The success of the product has taken the group on tour, so far hitting markets on the East and West Coast. Joe gave a statement saying, "I'd like to thank Spotify for this tremendous opportunity to take the Joe Budden podcast and podcasting in general to heights never before seen. Our partnership is extremely humbling for me and adds yet another chapter to a career full of plot twists. This highlights a new way of thinking and a corporate head nod to the shift taking place before our eyes. I'm even more thrilled to embark on this journey with some of my closest friends and people I love. The podcast has been a great amplifier for my voice, but fast growing into a platform for more and more artists to share their own personal feelings, stories, or experiences. I'm anxious to get started and optimistic about what's to come. While companies are spending endless amounts of dollars in research to find out what consumers want, how they want it, and who they want it from, we're in a space where all you have to do is listen to the people. Again, thank you, Spotify, for listening." And they kind of gave details in talking about the growth and the transition of the podcast. So I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to give my show's, I guess, briefing, and then kind of tie it into where this is going. Anytime I do this show, I'm making the podcast accessible to those who immediately can't get to ESPN, or don't have an opportunity to really know what's going on in different sports groups, or who want to just kind of get a unique person's take on these different topics and different issues going on. Joe's show is no exception to that. I've been a fan. I've been listening probably over the last year and a half. And when I say moments that I needed a laugh, I got a laugh, that's pretty much what this has been. But it's been a laugh, but it's also been information. Like I think because he's been in hip hop and also been in music as well as been in the culture and just kind of been around what's going on, there's not much that he's going to say that he's not like, okay, I don't have a say on this because I don't know. He's giving it to you from the raw and real truth of where people really aren't willing to take it. Like for me, anytime things are discussed or addressed with gaming, I have a pretty open mind or open soul to gaming. As I talked about on the show, when I guest hosted on the last Saturday, when it comes to music, and I mentioned this earlier. I was thinking about this from my own personal perspective. Where music evolves and where music gets challenged is where people listen to music. So the older generation, they listen to music from the 50s and 60s. Some 70s will say for PR purposes. When new music came out, they won't mess with new music. A lot of people won't listen to new music. They're comfortable with listening to what they know. They'll get a new listen here and there every once in a while, but nothing too aggressively consistent. You take the 80s babies. Everybody who was born in the 80s, which is my group, we grew up to that point of listening to 90s. A lot of people who I know personally won't listen to anything past 2000. And there was a point where I even made this as a comment, and I'm not going to back down from it because I know me. But after 2000, after the Soulja Boy hit stage of music, I kind of was in and out of music for a while. But over the last couple of years, between streaming music, between me just kind of picking up music as I find it, I took a chance. And you find good music in the cracks of what you're listening to. So it's that willingness and that openness of, let me try to see what's out there and see what's new to listen to. This podcast is no exception as far as talking about how it's kind of like a full circle of what music has become and is bound to become. Because yes, you're going to get the Nickys and the Cardis and the J. Coles and the Kendricks. But you're also going to get the under the radar artists that others need to know about. And that's something that they bring to light with sleepers and just listening to different songs. It's funny for me because I don't do sleepers on my show, but anytime that I'm listening to music session, or I'm having a music session just in general and I'm listening to stuff, I'm like, okay, this is something I need to share or bring up when I do my weekly, what I've been listening to. Like, most people do past the aux cord. Some people say what's on the Bluetooth, whatever, but it's just what works or what flows for your show or your style or your listening pleasure. So as Joe has said it and as everybody's saying it now, props on him securing the bag. He already has everything coming up with Revolt, but I think this going down with Spotify is huge. So this will definitely kind of lead to even bigger and better for their production as well as their brand as a whole. I realized I was old because, I'm really not that old, but I realized music has evolved because a couple of days ago was Lauryn Hill's 20th anniversary of the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, which I was like, okay, cool. No big thing, whatever. Well, September the 28th, it will be 20 years since Maxwell's Embryo came out. And if any of you remember music, you definitely will know Embryo. What they're doing is, in honor of this, they're going to be releasing a 2 LP white vinyl, which is going to include a 12-page booklet. And it's going to have unreleased photos from the Embryo photo shoot. And it's also been remastered by Maxwell as well as Stuart Matthewman, who's from Sade's band. If I did not share this on the podcast, I'm going to share this because I think a lot of people need to know and remember this being relevant. Anyone who thinks of Sade, everyone always knows Sade the singer, but they forget that Sade was part of a group, and the group was known as Sade. So when she looked at doing tours or doing anything, it was never just Sade. Like, if you wanted a tour to happen, it was going to be Sade and her band. And that's kind of the involvement of where we are now. So they give kind of an overall view of Maxwell as far as his listening and his music as a whole. Like I said, Maxwell's album was a timeless, like, masterpiece to me. Now, a lot of people, I'm stating this just to state it because it's relevant to point out. Not everybody really knew where he was going with what he was doing. Anytime I think about this album, I always think about Coco Cure, because that's a song no one will forget from that album. And then, of course, the self-titled single, Embrya. I think, let's see, because I'm trying to remember if it was Do a Little Something, because I know We Can Do a Little Something. I think something was on the track, on the album before this. I could be wrong. And yes, it was. That was on Urban Hang Suite. But yeah, UK, like, Embrya was there was a lot of credit and a lot of music that was swirling in 98. So if you're looking and you're interested, if you're a music collector and you want to get that vinyl collection added to your mix, go for it. Prince has his music available for streaming, which I personally did not know, because on Apple Music it was already there, so I really didn't pay any attention to it, because I was kind of listening to Prince in a wave a while back, and I was like, okay, we got all the Prince music, I'm with it. But all 23 Prince albums, and if I'm saying this correctly, his studio albums are now available for streaming. He also has a 37-track anthology along with music videos for Prince's Grammy Award-winning hit Black Sweat. The albums will span over the time frame of 95 to 2010, and they are available to obtain through streaming as well as download, including Emancipation and Musicology. They were indifferent about how to handle this whole process, but it was luckily taken care of the right way. 2018 marks the release of the iconic Prince Anthology 1995 to 2010, a remastered anthology album featuring 37 seminal recordings released throughout the artist's hugely successful run. The album opens with Emancipation, the title track from the 1996 album that Prince referred to as his most important album prior to its release. The Prince estate has invested a great deal of time in curating the anthology and believe that fans will appreciate the album's artistic merit and remastered sound. Prince, whose music is comprised of a unique fusion of rock, funk, pop, jazz, and opera, is widely recognized for his creative and prolific approach to music. And he gives a little bit more information about the album. They give a little bit more information about the album. Then they give you the digital catalog of all of the albums, all 24 of the albums, which would be the 23 studio albums along with the anthology. They have a YouTube video, I'm assuming, that kind of breaks all of them down. I am going to be honest. When the news broke that Prince was, if anyone remembers at that time, Prince was very private about his passing. I think Prince was a little more private than Aretha, because Prince, it really didn't come out until he wanted it to be known that, yeah, go ahead and let him know. And when the news broke, I mean, people, I think I was working in my disputes job at the time, but when I was at work or at home, I think I was at work, but I got the news about him passing, and it just kind of got me into a musical flow of just thinking about a lot of Prince music that has evolved. Ironically, I do have his discography as far as like the albums that released. Like I said, I'm able to. Streaming them, great, cool, whatever. But the actual hard copies of them, I do have. So if I ever get into that Prince moment, like it's certain artists that Prince, Whitney, Mike, Madonna, doggone it, the can't think of their name offhand. The Beatles, like all those groups, that's music that moments like those, going back to what I talked about with the digital versus physical, albums like those are why I always will have physical ready. Cause the internet's down, cool. Or, I can't access this, that, and the third. All right, great. Let me hook up my hard drive. So I try to make it my goal to keep my hard drive together for those type of plays. But yeah, if you are on any of your major sites, Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, all of those albums are listed there. If I want to say on Pandora, because Pandora is starting to do the option for streaming if you want to stream various albums as well. So this story was somewhat supposed to be considered as Ass of the Week, but we're going to do something a little different. First, I'm going to give this story, then I'm going to go into my music sesh, because there was a lot of music to get going, and I'll kind of give my hot take on what I can on that in a bit. But go back to your days of the Barnum's animal crackers when they were a major thing. Like you would go on a field trip and you had a box of them in your bag with the little rope on it, and it had to, like, the only thing that people cared about was eating the animals, or if the animals' body parts were properly together. Because sometimes you would get somebody, they wouldn't have a leg, or they wouldn't have the head, whatever, because it was just how it was, from natural carriage of the box that would occur. Well, supposedly, PETA was not a fan of the design on the box. And on the box, if you recall, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm paraphrasing this, but I can remember it, but I didn't, I want to make sure I give the right vivid image. The box had it had 4 animals. I can't remember the animals offhand. I want to say it was a polar bear, elephant, lion, and I can't think of the 4th. Might have been a giraffe. I don't know. But it would show the animal with their child, and they would be in a cage, but they were in individual cages. So PETA wasn't fond of that, and this then caused Nabisco, who is the maker of these animal crackers, to rebrand the box. And if you are looking at the article, they actually show the article. They show the new box. And basically now the new box has all of the animals walking together. They're all individual. There's no family. It's just a zebra. I think the zebra's new. But it's the zebra, the elephant, the lion, the giraffe, and the monkey. After more than, and the article starts off wrong. After more than a century of imprisonment, Barnum's cracker creatures are roaming free until they meet their mushy demise in the mouths of children anyway. After pressure from the people for the ethical treatment of animals, known as PETA, Nabisco has rolled out a redesign of its Barnum's animal crackers box, which takes its name from the famed circus that historically featured animals behind bars. Now the box shows the animals in formation, asserting their freedom on the savannah. We're always looking at how we do things to ensure we're staying relevant for our consumers. It seemed like the right time for the next evolution in the brand design. In a 2016 letter, PETA implored Nabisco to change its advertisement as public resistance to circuses grew because of allegations about abuse to circus animals. Given the egregious cruelty inherent in circuses that use animals and the public's swelling opposition to the exploitation of animals used for entertainment, we urge Nabisco to update its packaging in order to show animals who are free to roam in their natural habitats. Really? They're on a fucking box. Like, I'm sorry, I'm going out of character on this for a second. They are in, these are cookies in a box. And we're having a concern about the display on the box because of the freedom of animals in the circus. That is really this whole article in a nutshell. Like I said, they give more information. And I guess, this part of it is probably going to be key. Because if I'm not mistaken, we're no longer doing Ringling Brothers anymore. The Crackers' namesake, Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus. Barnum and Bailey Circus spent decades traveling the country with its tropes of animals and performers. Although neither namesake, Phineas Barnum, or the circus ever saw a cut of the snack's profits. Wonder if y'all knew that or not. But Ringling Brothers had long struggled with protests and legal disputes from animal rights activists. In 2015, the company announced that it would no longer use elephants as part of its shows. At the time, the chairman and CEO of Feld Entertainment, which operated the circus, said that Ringling Brothers' declining ticket sales dwindled even further after the elephants were taken off stage. The Greatest Show on Earth shuttered its tents in May of 2017 after a 146-year run. So, like I said, it's more to the article. Reading all this, read it and just kind of break it down on your own viewing. I'm going to say this. And the elephant part is key because it's something we don't think about. Kids are hard to entertain now. And the only reason I say it's hard to entertain them is not because of tablets, not because of technology, but because of connection. It's when our generation grew up, we had the connection between mom and in some cases grandma. Because grandma was, going to do things with you to some extent. It wasn't like you were expecting her to play video games because that wasn't something that she was about. And I'm using video games, but just things that family does together. The correlation between the grandmother, the mother, and the child is a little different now for those of my generation who have kids, because grandma may not be around. Mom is working. Dad is working. The baby or the child is trying to do activities in the city. I'm trying to find something to put your kids in, things of that sort. So it's a little different now. I give all of that, and I'm giving you that presentation because if you look at where we are with, the circus when it was a big thing, first thing I think about every time I look at the circus is that flashlight toy that every parent bought at least one time, or you owned it at one time. I guarantee you, anybody who bought one of those, even if you went a couple years ago, you do not know what that flashlight is, but you remember getting it from the circus. The circus went through its evolving. Removing elephants was a big deal. That was kind of the sign that it was about to change. So changing all of that on the circus side and it being affiliated with the crackers, and that was what it was supposed to be all about. The conflict was animals being caged, animals being tortured. It's not fair to animals. Let's make animals free. Still going back to what I said, it's a box of crackers. They're literally little cookies for kids to eat. Had the time, most people would give them away more than they were eating them. It was almost like a mix and match between eating those with milk, but that's all another world. But the extent that it's carried to where it was such a big deal that Nabisco rebranded, that's huge. So if you have not seen them already, you will begin to see the new Nabisco, Farnham, and Bailey crackers in your homes or at your availability. All right. So before we do our ass of the week and our pass of the week, I do have, and I did not even know that some more music came out, so I've been behind. Our music sesh. Wow, did we have a music sesh this week? Some albums I didn't even fully get to listen to. The Wave by Rehab, check it out. I'm just gonna say it like it is. Some of these I will put in a image on Instagram so you can see. Like I said, I always like sharing the Spotify image so you can kind of see where I'm going or where my brain is at the moment with what I'm listening to. Leon Thomas, I talked about them on the guest featured podcast. What more can I say? Like that, if you listen to this album, there's 7 tracks. I guess some people may look at it as an EP, but it's actually a pretty good EP. I did not listen to Bass, but that should be a good listen. I found a classical album not too long ago that was pretty good. Before I forget, because I talked about it on there and it's kind of been a new introduction. Love Yourself, Answer, BTS, give it a listen. If you are new to listening to Japanese music, give it a listen. I'm officially a fan from just listening to that album. I thought I was gonna listen to Ozuna, their album Aura, but gotta be in tune with the English flow there. It was a little new for me. Those are the albums I can think of offhand to listen to, because I haven't listened to Youngboy, Never Broke Again, and it's one more that I think crossed, but I didn't give it a spin. Bass, Milky Way I haven't listened to. Andrea Bocelli, Rarities Remastered. That if you want some good classical music in your system. Friozla Block, Soul Train. I just started to give that a listen. Be All, B.AULL. Go check him out as an artist. I mentioned this before about the anthology. I did listen to that. Those are all that I have that I'm sharing currently or have been listening to. Oh, Def Cab for Cutie. I think I mentioned it on the show before, but I'll share it again because to me that was I wasn't ready, but I'm glad I was ready because I listened and did not regret to listen. So those are some artists. Like I said, I'll make my effort to put those in a collage on Instagram to check out. Now for our ass of the week. And before I give this story its attention, I am going to share... Well, actually, both stories are very graphic. So I'll be graphic, but not be over the top if I can help it. Can't make any promises, of course. So Bryce Mitchell is our ass of the week for this week. He suffered a very gruesome accident thanks to a power drill. While doing some woodwork, he was involved in a nasty power drill accident that left him injured to the point where he likely won't be able to train for an extended period of time. He left a post on Facebook stating what happened. Again, this is the graphic part, so if you can't handle this, walk away. Just, I'd say, give it about a minute and a half, if that. So I was going to train today, but I ripped my nutsack in half. I'm about to get stitched up. I was holding a board over my head with a drill in my pants. I was sizing up the board, and the drill went off and tangled my nuts up in it. I dropped the board and reversed the drill and untangled my nutsack, but they was ripped in half. I'm serious too. I obviously can't post a pic, but when my nuts are sealed back up, I'm gonna come train again. I think a high kick would re-rip them. And if I hear any shitty puns about how this whole thing is nutty or screwed up, I ain't talked to you for about a month. If you're gonna drop a pun to make fun of me, at least put some thought into it. He spelled it just like that, by the way. So he did mention that he's looking to make a full recovery. He's 23 years old. And they just kind of give like his backstory about him wrestling. Someone did show, they did get a picture of the clothing with blood on it. I'm not going to share that. There's no need. If you want to look at it on your own leisurely time, it's up to you. But this was like one of those unexpected, like, wow, what caused you to hit this point? I couldn't even gather or fathom that occurring, but here we are. Definitely wishing him a speedy, all jokes aside, I wish him a speedy recovery, because that is not an enjoyable experience that anyone wants to say they experienced, but obviously he did, so here we are. But still, that's a nasty, oof. It hurt for me because I'm just like, I can imagine it, but I personally wouldn't be in that type of position from my personal perspective. But that's me, of course. So that's that for the ass of the week. This could have been ass of the week as well, but it's being claimed as pass of the week strictly because of the end result. And I'm only saying it, I'm not putting a light to the story, because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to speak on it, and this is actually what generated the image that everyone is seeing for the podcast page, or for the podcast site. There was a shooting at a Jacksonville gaming tournament. It left 3 dead. 2 of them were participants in the event, and the third was the gunman who shot himself. A gunman armed with a handgun killed 2 people at a video game tournament on Sunday, turning a football competition waged in a virtual domain into the chaotic scene of a double murder. The shooting suspect, who was a gamer attending the event, fatally shot himself. The sheriff said the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms were assisting in the investigation. I'm not going to state his name. I'm still sticking to that. A live stream of the tournament caught the chilling moment when the shooting began. A red laser dot appeared on the chest of one of the players, who was wearing white headphones and a red sweatshirt. The video of the players then disappeared. 12 gunshots rang out. 11 people were injured, 9 by gunshots. The shooting took place at 1:34 p.m. at the Jacksonville Landing, a riverfront collection of restaurants, shops, and an open-air performance space that is a gathering place in the city on weekends. Trump held a packed rally there as a candidate in 2015. By late Sunday, it was surrounded by fire trucks, police vehicles. Its perimeter roped off by police tape. SWAT team officers stood at the entrance of a nearby parking garage. A helicopter flew high overhead, and they kind of give images of the area. We've got to change. We have got to change. We've got to really stop and say to ourselves, there's something wrong. Which was stated by Rick Scott, who is the governor. He signed the gun control legislation into law after February 14th rampage at a high school in Parkland, which left 17 dead. Why are young men willing to give up their lives? Or why don't they value somebody else's life? We've got to figure this out. We don't want this to happen again. Mr. Scott is due to leave office within months. He's running for a seat in the U.S. Senate. On Sunday night, he made no specific policy proposals as he walked to his motorcade, stepping out for a picture with a hospital employee. He ignored reporters who called out more questions about gun control. Some more information is shared about this story. I'm not going to really read too much into this, but I'm going to say something, and I'm glad that I have another day to platform this topic. The incident happened on Sunday afternoon. Monday, I guess you can say Monday morning, Monday afternoon, the story came to light, or was addressed, that he was known to have a history of mental illness. The minute that is pointed out, that means that something was passed by and smoothed over. My friends and I have come together on being accountable for this, since we're all in the same venue, and looking at getting some counseling and getting help, not with each other, just because you want to. It's an opportunity that can be utilized that could possibly personally give you a breakthrough that you may need, and you don't know it. I feel as though we treat mental health or the mental illness as if it's just a thing. But it becomes more anytime someone commits suicide, anytime someone is involved in a mass shooting, or anytime it becomes a major story, is when attention is gained or given to it. And it's getting old. I truly feel bad for the individuals who were killed. The person who killed them, I feel bad for him being in the state that he was in. But I feel even more bad that he really did not know what to do or really know where to go. And so he only found it fitting to just take his own life. In my personal perspective, and I'm looking at this just on sheer discussion from how I'm listening to it, he didn't want to face or address it. And sometimes that's real for people. Some people really don't want to look at or acknowledge what has occurred. They just kind of want to look at it like everything's okay, when in reality it's not. Again, I send prayers and condolences to those families who did lose their loved ones. Anyone that was hurt or injured during the event, I send positive vibes to them as well. I know that we dislike or get annoyed when the constant statement is, let's pray on it. And I get it. I just really feel like there's always this opportunity where we look like we're getting it together as a country or as a whole. And out of nowhere, we just lose it. And it's tough. I think what makes it tough in the we're losing it part is that lives are taken in the process. Florida has had 3 mass shootings in 3 years, 2 or 3 years. The situation with the Orlando nightclub was not, that was just not, no. The school incident, as they mentioned in the article, not cool. And I know this probably will be one of my longer podcasts because I have not, like I said, it was a lot of information to dive into, but I'm definitely, this ending is just what it is because this is, what I'm saying now is similar to what I was intending to say in the initial brief podcast that I did. But it's got to stop, man. Like, and on top of that, and I'm going to do this because I did state that I would do this because I need to bring this to attention. Suicide awareness line is available. I will start reading that number again at the beginning of the show. I also want people who know me personally to reach out if you feel like you're at that point. Because a friend of mine, well, I won't even say an associate, but a friend of someone who I know, we met through a event a couple years ago, and she was hitting her lowest of lows. And at the time, in that moment, any other moment for me, it would have been me being uncertain of what to say or how to address it. But now I think because I'm more willing to just approach it and just let it be what it is, I take that chance. And luckily I broke through from what I was able to do from from a distance, because we're not in the same city. But I'm sharing that to say it as sometimes all it takes is a simple text message or a hello or a, hey, you okay? Because by nature, we try to tell others that we're all right, but in reality, we're not. This guy who did this shooting was not okay. Even if he did or didn't lose, he's played in Madden tournaments before. So something triggered personally for you to get to a point that you took out people in the tournament. One of them was a person you actually lost to in the tournament. I've lost in a lot of video games. I've thrown a controller at a TV. I would rather throw a controller at a TV than take somebody's life. There's a line. And it's just not worth reaching that point. And the first, before it even gets pointed out, easier said than done. I 100% get it. But you have to have that outlet and you have to have that avenue. And you truly and honestly can't try to sit here and act like you good and you can handle it on your own. If you can't handle it, you can't handle it. It's better to acknowledge it than to try to carry it like everything's good. So that's my message I'm leaving today. And that is, and I'm going to reiterate it so you'll know. Don't try to be so strong and so powerful that you want to do it on your own. If you need help, get help. It's not the end of the world. And I think people don't understand it really is not the end of the world if you are in need of a resource or an outlet. Because trying to fight it alone is very tedious. It is extremely tedious. But anyway, that's all I have. As I share it all the time, podcasts are uploaded to Spreaker.com. If you're looking to do podcasting, the microphone used is the Blue Yeti. On all social media platforms, past podcasts. If you need to email me, you want to talk, pastpodcastbt@gmail.com. As always, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, BT signing out. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get any information specifically based on the shows, you can go to Spreaker.com/BriTapePodcast or go to www.pastpodcast.com. On both of those options, you do have the information related to what topics were talked about, the timestamps for the episode, as well as the specific links related to that specific story. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, the Past signing out.